I'm Douglas Kurtz, and I'm alumni from the class of 1972. The early 70s were a really difficult time, okay? It was, we were coming into, we were right in the middle of the Vietnam War, okay? The 70s had a lot of change, okay? We came out of the hippies, 1960s, and went into the 70s. There was a lot of turmoil in the fact that in the early 70s was, like I said, the Vietnam War. We had Watergate, which was in '42. It was the first time that a sitting president had resigned in disgrace. 75, we had the fall of Saigon. It's the first time that any of us had ever seen the United States leave a war, not as a victor, you know. So it changed a lot. It was a big difference. It was very much different than what the generation before us or even the generation after us. The 70s were a lot of turmoil. They truly were. The music was good, you know. We were talking about that earlier today. So the Beatles had quit touring by then. So you had in the 60s you had the Beatles and the British Revolution in music and all the changes. So in the 70s, it made a big change in music. Stevie Wonder became the number one person. Elton John came out, and so it was more about away from the protester or away from the folk singer into lots of music. Simon and Garfunkel, Paul Simon had separated and went on his way. And so all of their music was about music. I mean, they had all different kinds of sounds. They had a lot going on for it. You know, the Eagles came up in the 70s. So it was a different time. In the 60s, you know, which we all grew up with basically, you know, you had the Beatles and you had Elvis Presley and you had all that. But I thought in the 70s it was in the groove. You had disco was about to start its way. You know, we were wearing high heel shoes with the bell-bottom pants, and so my wife and I don't know if you put this on there, but we just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. And so in our 50th wedding anniversary, I had some cutouts made of before and after. And so the one cutout is us in 1972, right before we got married, and I have on these striped bell-bottom pants and a jacket, and everybody that came to our party got their picture taken with the cutout. They didn't want a picture with us, and everybody made comment about those pants, you know. You know, our class was we had 52 kids in our class, which was one of the bigger classes at the time. We were all friends. It's amazing, and we just had our 50th reunion. And out of 52, 7 had passed, and over 30 came to the reunion, which, you know, percentage-wise is phenomenal for being 50 years old. You know, back then, like I said, the Vietnam War was going on, so most of the boys graduated, either went to work on the farm or went to Vietnam, okay? Very few in my graduating class went on to college, okay? Most of the girls, on the other hand, though, that were college bound, were going and doing different things. You know, you go back to the 70s, and women didn't have a great deal of opportunity as they do now. Okay, so most of the girls in my class, if you ask them what are you going to do, they were going to go to college and study English. They were going to be an English teacher. They were going to do whatever. So in the late 70s, it kind of changed, and people started going into the into the corporate world and making changes. I would say our class, we were very close knit. We were very energetic. We had a lot going on. Athletic-wise, the girls went to state in basketball, and the boys, we went to the regional in football, which in 71, 72 school year, that was the second time in 3 years that Somerset had been to the regional playoffs. It had been 20 or 30 years before that, and it was another 25 years later before they won again. So that's kind of where we were. Everybody worked here, everybody was local. Like I said, back then you didn't have a whole lot of other things to do, so life kind of centered around school. The time that you're in school, and it's a lot like when I gave the commencement address, okay? It isn't about when you're here in school, while you're here. What you need to do is develop the friendships and the work ethics that will take you where you need to get to. I mean, everybody has their own version of fame and fortune and all that. But the reality of it is that everybody I know does the best they can at what they do, okay? And some people do better in one form or fashion. But we're having dinner tonight with some people that I grew up with that we're still in touch with, you know. Take the time when you're in high school or grade school through high school into college to make those lifelong friends, to make those acquaintances, to make that commitment to somebody else, because that's really what it's all about.